Hey guys, Matt here again. I thought I'd do a talk on near-death experiences. As declared elsewhere, I'm no expert on the subject, but I've been sort of following a bit of work from people like Bruce Grayson, Jeffrey Long, and of course I've been catching up on some of Arlindo's experiential realism channel as well, which deals quite extensively with NDEs and interviewed some sort of leading thinkers on the subject. So, take a look at that. So, sort of what are NDEs? I'm pretty sure everyone will have heard of near-death experiences. It seems all the rage at the moment. Loads of people are discussing it. Loads of people seem to be sort of grabbing hold of it as some kind of evidence, if you like, for certain metaphysical systems and models. Not least of which is idealism, and I'll get on to some of the implications for that later. Basically, it comes down to people being on the operating table or sort of in a crisis, situation, bodies collapsing, hearts failing, and brains ceasing to function, and so on and so forth. And you've got these cases where literally people just aren't showing any signs of what we would consider to be a living human being, and yet they return from these experiences with profound visual sensory kind of episodes to talk about, quite often involving family members, and but also, the stuff that interests me the most are these accounts where people find themselves looking down from the ceiling, or find themselves able to kind of move around, and travel through walls into neighbouring rooms and stuff. There was one that I heard about today where I think a lady sort of, she was staring down on her body and then went into a neighbouring theatre and witnessed an arm amputation. I think it was it might have been a leg amputation, and she was revived, and remembered all of this, explained it to the professionals, and one of the consultants checked it out and found indeed that there was actually an amputation going on concurrently in the neighbouring room at that time. So, what can you say about that? If we were talking about sort of one or two of these, you might say, well, yeah, there's some kind of coincidental stuff. Maybe she subconsciously recorded some details that she'd listened to on the way into theatre or something like that, and she'd managed to piece together some images that corresponded with those discoveries, right? And but the fact is, we're not just getting a few of these. There's just dozens of these sorts of experiences where people can, professionals and family members can actually validate the claims of the experiences. In terms of what science says about it, I think the broad consensus would probably be that it's some sort of traumatic or trauma-based sort of brain activity, and I'd suggest that that's the kind of mainstream response to it. But I think there's a growing sort of movement behind this, where people are saying, well, we just can't ignore the volume of these reports, right? So what about the metaphysics of this? It suggests that there's some sort of boundary between life and death, and that we travel from this form into some other form, which we can then indeed travel back from, right? I suppose there's nothing to say that these near-death, we've got to bear in mind that these are near-death experiences, right? You might say, someone might come up with a technical definition of death and say, oh, they've transgressed that boundary, they are now technically dead. But, well, I think if you're dead, you're dead. That's final, isn't it? So these are near-death experiences, right? So there's no guarantee that with final death that the kind of experiences they're having will continue, right? I'm not sure I'm making any sense there, but I think that's fairly clear. I've never had one, right? I've had some strange experiences through meditation, psychedelics, and sort of trance-like states and stuff, which I've explained elsewhere. Certainly in childhood, I used to get these things in lucid dreams and stuff, but I've never experienced anything like this. I don't know anyone personally that has either, but I sort of feel like I'm getting to know a few from watching some of these videos online. What can we say about it? People's brains, have extremely limited activity. if any at all. Hearts are stopped, but these people are experiencing stuff. So, I mean, that for me, and if we say, well, there's just thousands of these accounts which we can't ignore, and there's also evidence of people perceiving things when their body's totally afunctional, then we have to say that this suggests something very interesting about consciousness, way beyond kind of an ordinary materialistic account. I mean, I would suggest that this, doesn't necessarily prove or kind of lend any certainty to, about life after death or metaphysics, but it certainly makes less plausible materialist accounts of consciousness and more plausible idealist, perhaps panpsychist accounts of consciousness. Because, the idealists are saying, well, consciousness is not rooted in the body. And, the body dies, consciousness persists. Well, that looks like kind of empirical evidence to support at least some of the claims of idealism, right? Or should we say, Castrupian idealism, because, that's probably the most solid kind of case for idealism, really. It's certainly better than Berkeleyan. So, I mean, the research is continuing. If you're interested in this stuff, look up Jeffrey Long. I mean, from what I've gathered, he is convinced that there is some sort of life after death, right? And and he's been looking at this guy's. I think he's some sort of radiation oncologist, so he's very close to death and dying and so on. And I think he's put together the world's largest study of NDEs. I think it's something like more than 4,000 experiences have been sort of interviewed and questioned and so on and so forth. So, it's well worth a look. And, I mean, if mainstream science could sort of, take more of a look at some of these interesting phenomena. So you've got, Sheldrake's polymorphic resonance fields. You've got his scoposthesia studies, the telephone calls thing. I mean, it could just open the door to so much more interesting research. And again, this is why I say that philosophy and metaphysics very much belong in science. If idealism, or at least a strong brand of non-physicalism, could be kind of how do I put this? Sort of infused within the scientific community, I think science will get more interesting and will make more interesting findings. I think. I mean, obviously, the reductionist program, materialism, has its uses, and there's still, tons and tons and tons of practical areas that still need to be understood, right? Certainly with physiology and material sciences and so on and so forth. But, why not study some of this other stuff, which is clearly happening, in the same way that UAP and UFO phenomena is clearly happening? I just think it's crazy to close the door on this stuff. So, all good luck to these guys looking into it and so on. Have I said anything of any interest there? I mean, for me, I think it's evidence of a non-materialistic, account of consciousness, and yeah, that's cool. Cheers, guys. Bye.